This is the third training, duty to report.
You walk into the school gymnasium late in the afternoon, and you see Coach Jones with one of the boys from the basketball team on the side of the bleachers. Coach Jones has his hand on the boy's upper thigh. Both look over at you immediately and act as if nothing was going on. What do? Report the behavior you saw, or nothing for now. Wait and see if you witness any behavior like this again. Your goals for Lesson 1 are to know why reporting suspected abuse and neglect is important, to identify why people don't report, and to understand that you are morally and possibly legally required to report suspected abuse and neglect. Click the forward arrow to continue. There are 5 reasons why reporting suspected abuse and neglect is critical. It may prevent further harm to the child. It may save other children from abuse and neglect. It contributes to the safety of your community. It brings policy and practice gaps to attention. Finally, it can avoid civil litigation and criminal charges. Click each button to learn more.
I started molesting children when I was 10 and was finally apprehended when I was 36, so that I molested children over a period of 26 years for a total of approximately 34 victims. Well, I had my first victim when I was 10, and she was like 5 or 6. We played together in the backyard. I convinced her to pull her panties out and let me touch her, like playing a game. I just kept on doing it anytime I could. I became a volunteer youth pastor at my church. I worked for the Boys and Girls Club, worked at the Y. I coached my niece's soccer team. I mean, everything I did was to be around little girls. I'd say I molested around, I don't know, maybe 100. But I loved every one of them. At least that's what I told myself. I told myself what I was doing wasn't bad. Deep down I knew it was. I just couldn't stop. So I got caught.
Clearly, as adults, we have a moral and, in most states, a legal responsibility to report suspected child abuse and neglect. Remember that fulfilling our responsibility keeps children safe, prevents more victims, protects the organizations where we work, and increases safety in our communities. Despite Despite so many important reasons to report suspected abuse and neglect, sometimes individuals see something but don't respond. What do you think is the most common reason this happens? Type a brief text message style answer to the question. Click the send button when you're done. Your answer to why people don't report suspected child abuse is displayed in the text bubble. Most barriers to reporting can be categorized into three primary reasons. Uncertain. People don't report because they are uncertain, fearful, or simply don't want to wrongly accuse somebody else. Click each button to learn more about these reasons. The most common barrier to reporting suspected abuse and neglect is that people don't want to wrongly accuse someone of such a terrible thing, abusing a child. However, wrongly accusing someone should not be a concern when you consider the numbers of children who are sexually abused before the age of 18. Most of us simply can't imagine someone doing that, yet 1 in 4 girls and 1 in 6 boys in the United States are sexually abused before they are 18. Uncertainty, fear, and the concern of wrongly accusing someone can get in the way of doing your responsibility in reporting abuse. Click the scenario button and think about the scenario. Is this something you would be inclined to report to authorities? Click the Tools button, then click the Action Plan button to display the Action Plan document. Print the action plan, as you will use it throughout the rest of the course. Write your thoughts in the action plan. Also, review the reasons why reporting abuse and neglect is critical in your action plan. Each of us has a moral obligation to report child abuse and neglect, but some people are mandated to report. A mandated reporter is someone who is required by law to report suspected child abuse or neglect. Are you a mandated reporter? Click the button with your answer. Your goals for Lesson 2 are to know what a mandated reporter is and to determine your legal responsibilities. Click the forward arrow to continue. Each state has its own regulations that identify which occupations are mandated reporters. Those who are mandated reporters share these traits. They are people who encounter children, and they are required by law to report suspected child abuse or neglect. See mandated reporting requirements for your state. These regulations vary from state to state and change from time to time. If you have any questions about your state's requirements, check with your employer. Your employer may also have specific policies about who is required to report. That's why you'll want to watch for any changes in what's required in your state and by your employer. Find your company's policies in a policy manual, on an internal website, or by asking your supervisor. Summarize your employer's policies and your action plan. Which of these conditions do you most associate with abuse or neglect? Click the button for your choice. Your goals for Lesson 3 are to know the types of abuse to look for and to be able to recognize the indicators of abuse. Click the forward arrow to continue. Child abuse is the physical, sexual, or emotional maltreatment or neglect of a child or children. In the United States, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, the CDC, and the Department of Children and Families, or DCF, define child maltreatment as any act or series of acts of commission or omission by a parent or other caregiver that results in harm, potential for harm, or threat of harm to a child. Child abuse can occur in a child's home or in the organizations, schools, or communities where the child interacts. There are 4 major categories of child abuse: physical abuse, sexual abuse, psychological or emotional abuse, and neglect. Click each type of abuse to learn more. Click each folder to learn about the indicators of abuse. Now let's review the indicators that you learned on the previous screen. Consider the indicators on each notepad and determine which type of abuse is described. Click the notepads to reveal the correct answers. The categories of abuse are summarized in your action plan. Review the categories in the action plan and make any notes that you want to remember from this lesson. See if you can identify which two statements are true. Click the two statements that you think are true, then click the Submit button. Your goals for Lesson 4 are to be able to report an incident or suspected incident of child abuse or neglect and understand safeguards that are in place for mandated reporters. Click the forward arrow to continue. If you are a mandated reporter and you know or suspect that a child has been the victim of child abuse or neglect, you are legally required to report your knowledge or suspicions. However, you are not required to be a mandated reporter to make a report. Anyone can make a report of suspected child abuse or neglect. And remember, you are also not required to actually witness abuse or neglect before you make a report. You just have to suspect that abuse or neglect may have occurred. When you suspect that abuse or neglect have occurred, it's important to understand the time frame for reporting, who to contact, and what information to provide. Click each button to learn more. There are a number of safeguards that help protect mandated reporters and the integrity of the reporting process. Click each button to learn more. Remember, your state and employer may have specific time requirements for reporting suspected abuse or neglect. It is important to look this information up and write it down. Also, record the number of your state toll-free child abuse reporting hotline and your local police department. Make the specific notes for when you report and who to contact in the Lesson 4 section of your action plan.
All right, this concludes our duty to report. Thank you for taking this training. Don't forget the checklist with the training to fill it out and email it back to me. Thank you.